Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing really well. So today I wanted to do another live. I haven't done one of these in a little while, and have a chat with a generator. Her name is Yelena, so she will be joining us shortly. I'm just going to invite her. Let me just find her. So we're just going to have a conversation really about human design, and specifically for the purposes of today, we're going to focus on generators. It's actually majority of us. I mean, manifesting generators about 70% of population. So I guess it's worth mentioning them. Hey, Yelena, how are you?
I'm okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine. I can hear you fine. So yeah, no, thank you for coming on. I know you've been battling with a bit of cold, so hopefully you're feeling a lot better. You look great, by the way.
Oh, thank you. You do really look great and fresh. And I'm
Thank
excited
you.
to hear about human design, and particularly from a fellow generator. And yeah, how does
Generator and a 3-5 generator, right? I mean, the coincidence. And I find actually it's more of a profile for me personally that really makes the difference. I mean, everything is incredible because you really get to understand yourself on a whole new level. When you begin to understand why you make certain choices, right? Especially choices you know are not good for you, but you just like cannot break the pattern. And when you begin to make the unconscious conscious and recognize it and breaking it, it's powerful. It's really powerful. But profile for me, and that's we're going to talk about it, that was the game changer because it's honestly like gave me permission to be me, you know? And that was something I think, I don't know if you can resonate, but I personally struggled with for many years, many years. So let's dive in. Right.
great?
So let me know, like, what do you know? I know you know a little bit about human design. Like, where are you with your experience?
Well, the only thing I experienced was your workshop, which I absolutely loved, which was
Thank you.
great, and just gave me an overall insight. Well, kind of high level insight, not very deep, but just enough to understand that it's a system which is an amalgamation or synergy of many different modalities, and some of them I'm familiar with. So that's why it is very intriguing for me to find out more. And in itself, it seems like a superior system in many ways because it draws on so many different wisdoms, traditions, and modalities. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just I'm here to just hear your your wisdom and interpretation really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll give you a bit of insight about being a generator, and then also going to ask you whether, something agrees with you, something doesn't, right? Because perhaps it's like you'll go, what? And then we'll talk about your authority, so how you actually design to make decisions, and then we'll touch on profiles. Okay, how does that sound?
Sounds great. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So let us talk a little bit about actually what is a generator. First of all, in human design, there are 5 different energy types, and often generators and manifesting generators, they're combined together. So generators are the builders. They're actually somebody who here to work. They've got a consistent energy running through the body. They like wake up with this engine in the gut, and they like grrr, go through the day, trying to accomplish many tasks to do. And they're the doers. They are serious doers. And I think you can resonate, right? Because you like doing things.
Absolutely, yes. I've always had this bias for action, and while that is very good in many ways it is also limiting because you can feel this strong urge to be doing things, and often, even literally the other day, I complained to myself and whoever was at home how again I let a perfectly good day slip by where I was planning to have 2 or 3, 4 hours as a clear chunk of time, which wasn't taken by any calls or anything, to just do some thinking work and strategic work and create some stuff that I've been wanting to do, but it slipped by. because I reacted to many different things that were thrown my way. And I also feel like, oh, you know, I want to help this person, or I don't want to disappoint that person. So yeah, there is almost like an inner compulsion to be doing a lot
Yeah.
most of the
Yeah,
time.
absolutely. And for generators, although we are doers, we actually the only type, well, generators and manifesting generators, we're the only type who are here to know ourselves, right? So for
Mm.
us, it's really important to really sit and reflect and have these moments of silence, have, like just walks in the nature. I don't really do much enough of it, but what I do is I sit on a couch silently for 10, 15, half an hour, and that gives you that different perspective, really, because during those moments of silence, that's when you go, I should reach out to this person, I should call that person, this
Oh
is
yeah,
what's next. And you will know the next step is the right step, because it's like your sacral, right? It's your gut that like goes, it gets like all like excited. And it's that gut feeling that we follow as sacral beings. And that's our intuition. So when people say trust your gut, it's actually not correct for everyone. So for us, absolutely, for generators, we trust our gut, right? And then your authority will determine whether you act on it right now, or you pause and then you take an action, once you're a little bit clearer on
yeah.
it. So another
So
thing is really,
for me, this comes in my morning meditation, which is a non-negotiable. My half an hour morning meditation is my time to rest and recharge and allow things to come into my consciousness. And that's often when I get ideas or get hunches about, yeah, who I should contact, or I even put out to the universe whatever I would like to happen. And yeah, these things are actually starting to happen more and more. So I love it.
yeah, no, brilliant. And because obviously the more you do it, it's like a muscle, right? It's like your
Mm,
intuitive muscle that you've got to train. But also, it's important to have those pauses through the day and just to check in with yourself, am I still in that flow? And because I know myself, I get out of flow because this person emails and I see this on LinkedIn, and you kind of feel like pulled in directions. And next minute, I know that kind of anxiety creeps in. So that's when you like go, pause, go for a walk, do something else, so break that pattern. So, and for generators, as even though we're here to meet to do any work with the builders, we've got the energy, we have this energy, creative energy in response to something, right? So because we cultivated energy from within us, not from anybody else, like for example, manifestors, projectors, reflectors would be doing, we create this energy when we in a state of joy, of motivation, of excitement, which is why it's so important, really, if someone is a generator, to really follow that passion and to honor that pull, that it's like the whole kind of, pull towards or away from something. And what happens when you don't do that, you obviously then first of all, your mind gets on the way. And we know when you get stuck in your head, this looping thoughts over and over, it just takes a lot of energy. So eventually that's when overwhelm sets in, and well, potentially burnout also.
yeah.
So important thing then just to remember is to respond to something. And because we move relatively fast, we are conditioned really to move very fast and to initiate, it goes against the nature, I guess, or something we are used to. So it's almost becomes like a conscious thing, when you start reaching out to someone, it's like, well, does it really feel aligned? Am I using my energy correctly? And I'm not saying you can never initiate something, you can, but you might have noticed that when you take that first step, when you reach out, when you initiate, when you make a call, or whatever it is, it's either feels like really kind of uncomfortable or painful, and usually doesn't really lead to an amazing opportunity, right? The right opportunities are the ones we respond to. Does that resonate?
Yes, definitely. And I'd say I was quite lucky to realize this early on intuitively when it comes to my work life. So I've always followed what my heart told me to follow. As when I graduated, I had I had very little prospects where I came from at the time, Yugoslavia. Nothing was happening. There were no prospects, particularly for someone who studied English and Japanese. And however, the opportunity came to me to interview with some Japanese people, and I responded. and I landed a role in Tokyo and went there, and it was fabulous. But at the same time, when I was attending interviews with them, because it was a massive event in London actually, I was interviewed by some bigger, well-known companies that offered me to be trained as an accountant. And I just thought, no, I don't see any synergy. It doesn't attract me. Probably it's going to pay me better. And it's, you know, there were many attractive bits around it, but I really followed my heart and went into something that is working with people, which is what I always wanted to do. So anyway, in that sense, absolutely. And I always honored that, well, almost always, I'd say, when it comes to my work life. In personal
Yeah.
relationships, no. And that's where some big mismatches occurred. But hey, you live and you learn.
Well, absolutely, you know, and now just having this awareness that really you're here to follow your guts, not so much your heart. I mean, heart is obviously a beautiful thing, but for the gut, you would feel it in your body. It's like, and the more you practice it, the more you have this like stronger feel in it. And the nice thing, actually, you can even test it. So for generators, it's really easy because we best respond to yes and no questions. So if someone, and let me know if that also like kind of, you know, sounds familiar to you, but if someone asks me like an open-ended question, like what would happen if that didn't happen, you know, like when you get on a sales calls and I like my mind can't comprehend it, I'm like, can I just say yes or no, because I don't understand what you asked me, right? And it's always been like that. When people ask me the question before, I'd go like, am I stupid? Why can't I understand the question like everybody else seems? But now I understand. My mind just doesn't stretch that far into, you know, all the celebrative answers.
It's yeah, I've deliberately challenged myself and trained myself as a coach to answer those questions as well, because I need to be able to use them with my clients, which are hypothetical, which are about visualizing, which are about projecting your future self. How would it be if this, that, and the other, or what would happen if you had the magic wand and you can create whatever you want, and so forth. So yeah, these are lovely questions, but when it comes to visioning, I guess I it's true. I need to like really focus my mind and kind of then cast an image of something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. You know, and like when I communicate now, because like my son is a generator, my daughter is a manifester, and sometimes I forget, but when I remember, I can see the big difference in how they respond to me, you know, because before I would like, as a generator, I'll ask them yes or no question, and my daughter's like, now I've got to give her choices, you know, so she can choose something, and that makes a big difference. So for generators, it's also really important to set boundaries, you know,
Oh
because
yeah,
we've got, I mean,
I
for
learned that the
everyone,
hard way. I learned the very hard way.
it's important, but it's like in your design, you have an open emotional solar plexus sensor. So, you know, you've got the colored in and the open ones. So the open centers, this is how we absorb the energy from the others. So, for example, you with somebody who has that emotional center defined and they're in a bad mood, you will not only absorb it, but you will amplify that. Same as with the sad or anger, whatever the feeling, you would really, really feel it strongly. So you're like an empath, right? So, and being a generator with our energy field, the aura really around us, it's very welcoming, it's very enveloping, you know. So we're attracting things towards us,
Oh
and
yeah,
people sense
all
it.
sorts
People
of
sense
people
it.
and things.
Yeah, and
Sorry, yeah.
especially, you know, when you've got that sacral, you follow that pull, you trust your gut, you know, joy, you know, flow, you love what you're doing because you're a generator, you're sending out this beautiful energy around you. You're so empathic with your emotional center. And if you have no boundaries, it's going to be really, really difficult because you're going to feel drained, completely drained. So boundaries are extremely important.
Thank you. This resonates very much. Yes, and that's something I had to learn the hard way over a number of years in personal relationships and at work, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, I did recently, I mean, I do different tests and things because I'm curious, but also because I work with clients. And according to 5 Traits Personality Test by Jordan Peterson, apparently I'm 97th percentile of empathy. So in a room of 100 people, there'll be only 3 who are more empathetic than me, which is lovely. But it's also what I find is that I mean, there's a reason why I work with people and why I'm a coach, particularly in the last 6 years. But what I have to be vigilant of is that I'm not a rescuer. You know, being a rescuer is a different thing from being a coach or from being a loving parent or from being a whatever. So that's a huge distinction and huge learning for me. And I've made a lot of progress, but I still have to be vigilant.
Yes, because you also have the energy. So there is channels. So channels is like when you've got the two senses and they're joined together by a fully colored line. So you've got a channel 5027 and the gate 50. So the two gates make a channel. The gate 50 is all about nurturing. It's all about caring, to the point actually where if it's a low expression of that energy, you almost fear you fear failing responsibility. It's a fear of responsibility.
Oh yeah,
And then also judging and also judging others for not being caring enough. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Totally true. Totally true.
Yeah. So it's obviously, just something being aware of, and especially when you absorb the emotions, right? But once you discern those emotions, like, hold on a second, this anger, frustration, sadness is not mine, you begin to understand, then, then you'll be able to move past that. Instead of judgment, I guess, look at it with acceptance and love.
Absolutely. And I also, over the years, I learned self-management through different personal development work, but particularly as a coach, which means I have to cleanse my energy. I have to be mindful of my energy, and that for that reason I meditate regularly and I do some other practices. But I'll just mention about responsibility that, that is spot on. I've always had a huge sense of responsibility and duty to myself and others. And sometimes I really go overboard. And then my favorite question, when I remember to ask myself, no, actually it's not a question, it's a statement, which is, I don't have to do anything. Who says I have to do that? and I remind myself that, that'd be great, but I don't have to do anything. Like right now, I can stop everything and it's all great. The world is not going to collapse. So that
exactly. Helps. Absolutely. It's a good reminder, because with your open heart center, the will center, there's nothing to prove. I mean, none of us really have to prove, but especially those who have an open heart center, and that's majority of us. First of all, we should not really be making commitments, okay? Because once we run out of energy or situation changes or it's not in alignment with us, we're going to try to push with that willpower where we don't have consistent energy and we can actually burn out. So, understanding that even, in your design, it's like, I have nothing to prove to anyone. And just kind of making it your mantra when you're trying to do more. It's like, well, no, just understanding that. Another thing I want to point out quickly before we move on to decision making is your G center. So that's just under the throat, and that is a center for direction and self-love. So with the open G center, for you, location is extremely important. You've got to be in the right location with the right kind of people, because your sense of identity changes depending who you're with. So, if you don't feel comfortable in environments, then change it. Don't stay there. It can be almost like a deal breaker. If you're like on a call with a client, you're sitting in a coffee shop and it flops, you could literally be sitting in a different coffee shop and like make a 10K sale, just as an example. So location is extremely.
Location, and not only on kind of occasions, but also permanent location or locations where I live. I find more and more that is absolutely crucial for my well-being, like that it all resonates with me, or I resonate with my surroundings.
Yeah, okay. So let's move on. All right. So when it comes to decision making, we already spoke, it's about following your guts, yeah, because you are pure generator with a sacral, you've got a sacral defines. And that means when something feels really good for you and you can feel it in your body, this is when you act on it. You're designed to make spontaneous decisions, because when you don't, either it's not correct for you, or perhaps it's just not now. Like now I've got an opportunity that came my way and I'm like, in between. So I'm just going to park it because I feel like it's not now. But sometimes something happens and then you just feel so good. And of course, we know that mind and starts going like, but it's not a good time right now. I'm too busy. I don't have money. The kids are at home. The kids are off out of home. And
Yeah,
this is when you then overrides your true decision-making authority. And it just takes, it just takes practice. It takes trust to follow that pull, when you're in the middle of a launch
absolutely.
and you just feel like you have to go for a walk, and it's honoring that energy. It's like literally putting everything aside and going for a walk when your mind is like screaming at you and freaking out. But the more you do it, the less it's going to get freaked out.
Absolutely, yes. And I'm super happy whenever I followed my gut and my heart, and especially in matters of travel. One big decision I made was to go to Deepak Chopra's retreat in Hawaii in summer 2019. But I had just been on a long, expensive trip with my boys to Asia, visiting China and Japan. So the first thing that was coming to me is like, oh my God, where am I going to get money for this now? And really doesn't make sense because I already spent so much money. And then I thought, you know what? No, this has to happen. I just knew, and I will find the money and whatever. So I went, and it was absolutely stunning, life-changing experience. And even with smaller decisions, it's whenever I really honor my inner feeling about something, it works out, and it's very rewarding. It never let me down.
Yeah, because I think a lot of us have that fear of missing out, even though it's like it doesn't feel good, but your mind goes, but you need it, you have to have it, or you don't need it. And then you just end up making decisions where you later go, "Oh, shit, why did I do that?"
I
And
don't do that, thankfully, not really, or maybe very, very rarely. But I
that's
think
good.
I've been, yeah, tuning into myself for years and decades, and it comes much more naturally to me now. I just know. It doesn't matter how I know, but I know that that's the right thing.
Exactly. And because, like you said, you've been practicing for a long time, it's like going to the gym. It's the muscle that you've got to build, your guts and you've got also defined spleen. So if spleen would then act as a backup authority. So then your decision is obviously comes from that pool, from that gut. It's instant. And then the spleen gives you like another hint of this like confirmation, so you've got the double jab kind of thing in you. And this
Okay.
is then when you act. Um, so I also just want to touch on profile before we wrap up. So
Yeah.
profiles is how we're here to express ourselves. It's what makes us feel grounded, supported, and also how we learn, right? Because everybody works and learns in a very different style. Some people need to research, to dig into something. Some need like solid foundations and like group of team of like supporters who they trust and rely on. With your profile, same as my profile, which is a 3-5, it's all about experimentation, right? It's all about experimenting and tweaking, and that doesn't work. Just like check it aside, and then you experiment, and then great, that works. And then going in as a line 5, then going and sharing it with the others. So it's like kind of universalizing your message. And what it can feel like, let me know if that also resonates with you. For me, it felt like I was constantly making one mistake after next, and people throughout my life told me, why can't you just learn from this person? Or why can't you just read up and research a bit more before doing something? And I couldn't. I would just like, no, I can't do that. So I always felt like I was failing at something. So when I realized that, I was like, phew, I was meant to do that. Does it sound
No, it's
familiar?
absolutely, it's a great relief. I don't know if I was failing, or probably if I was, I don't have the recollection of a very harsh judgment of myself, because again, that's something I've been cultivating over years. I do learn from others, but then I just take the bits that resonate with me. I chuck out whatever doesn't resonate or doesn't serve me, and then I create a mishmash with my own flavor. And yeah, it is about experimenting. And, I did try different things. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. Some of them maybe didn't work at that time, but I could revisit. But I'm generally very open. One thing I know I can't do is read instructions.
right?
Oh my
No
God.
way.
So when you
I'm
said
just gonna go and mess it all
experiment,
up, burn the house down, and then try again. There's no ways.
I really don't understand why I have such aversion to this, but I would fiddle with something, and that is experimenting. And I'm also
Yes.
not really practical or very good at, I don't fix things or anything like some people do. But
Mm.
just to read instructions, that kills me. I mean, if I have to, I will. But I'd rather ask someone. If someone tells me,
Yes.
shows me, great. Yeah.
I'm exactly the same. Exactly. I just don't do instruction. That's why I hate baking. It's just too many instructions for me, you know. And if I cook, like I can follow 5 lines and I start adding something of my own. And I made a cottage pie and my son goes, "What's wrong with it?" And I'm like, "Shit, it's upside down." I literally put all the ingredients upside down. Well, next time I know to do that way, you know. But that's how I learn. And then the interesting thing, you know, we only once you embody that. And that's the thing for us, it's all about finding something that truly worked for us and then share it. And
Yeah.
you've got a gate 33 coming from your throat, and it's a gate of retreat. And what it means is really it's here to share its experiences. So you really need those experiences you share with others, but before you're sharing them, it's all about retreat and like a really deep need for privacy, because it's during the
Oh, yeah.
privacy that you kind of integrate, you understand what it is that you want to speak out. Because when you speak out before really integrating it, others just not going to be here, not going to be ready to hear you. And as a generator, you don't have that motor to your throat, same as me, right? And my throat is open, yours is defined, but you don't have that motor to the throat. It's not a motorized throat, meaning that you're not here to speak, you're not here to initiate our words into action. The only time we can really create a momentum is when in response to something. And that's why we need to be responding. Because if you're just going to use our voice to share
Mm.
something we experimented with or something worked for us without responding to something, it's like nobody's going to hear you.
Understood. Yes, that was one of my biggest revelations in your workshop, when I realized that my main mode or modus operandi is to respond. And having looked back, it's true. For all major shifts in my lives, all the jobs I got, all the things I created, they actually came in response to something. Things that I initiated, some of them worked as well. It's not like they didn't work, but
Absolutely.
I did expend so much energy, and it was so exhausting, and I just couldn't quite see why.
Yeah, exactly. And it's having the trust, when sometimes when like things are slow, and for generators, we tend to get stuck on plateau, so you like reach certain level of mastery and then you feel like nothing is
Yeah.
happening.
Mm.
So the not self theme for a generator is frustration. So this is, when we get out of alignment, right? And you're like, why is nothing moving? So then you start reaching out, you start, just really acting as a manifester, and or just doing jobs that don't light you up just for the sake of doing something because you can't stop doing things. And then you just quit. So generators are the biggest quitters.
Really?
And
Okay.
yeah,
I,
well, they
I
are majority of population anyway,
I'm
but they
not
are
that
because they,
way. I don't quit. I mean, unless something absolutely is, putting me in the place of compromised life or compromised health. I don't quit, but I have to show restraint and patience. That's true. And sometimes I think my experience in recent years, actually, particularly a couple of last years, has shown me that if nothing is happening, that's when everything is bubbling to the surface, and all the hard work and everything that was percolating and cooking in the big pot, say in the last 3 months,
yeah.
there's like silence, nothing, and then things start to bubble like in a big cauldron, and then they start to happen almost all at the same time. That's what I experienced, particularly in recent months, actually, which is wonderful, and it's very reassuring.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, as I said, because you're doing so much inner works, you've done it for ages. So you have this experience, it's not like you're not maybe going to go and start freaking out when something is quiet. And this is just for other generators who are listening, that
Mm.
if nothing is happening, it is just maybe you about to move to that next level of mastery. And in the meantime, when I say you've got to wait to respond, it doesn't mean you've got to sit and do nothing, right? You can still build a website, you can still share. So it's all about sharing, being staying visible, right? So people know about you. Doing the podcast, like doing articles, whatever it is. If you don't feel like doing it, if it completely drains you, then you find something that reignite that sacral, that energy, because this is how we then start radiating that, that field around us. We expand the field rather, because when we frustrated, and I can relate to being frustrated so many times, instead of expanding that field, you shrink it. And when you shrink it, you repel everything.
Exactly. And I've experienced frustration and even anger so many times over my life in the past, primarily. I'm not saying I'm a Buddha right now, okay? But this is happening a lot less. Anger, hardly ever, because I had the big epiphany once, and I realized that the only person I could ever be angry with is myself. But that realization came literally in my body. Like I realized with my entire being. And since then, I've very, very rarely I've been angry, primarily not at all, because I just don't connect to that emotion anymore as much. Frustration could be here and there, but then I remind myself that it's, it's just about acceptance and being patient and not shrinking. I think about the consequence. Do I want to expand or do I want to shrink? How does this feel in my body? That sort of thing.
Exactly. And just taking those pauses, I know you do it in the morning, but even just throughout the day. One of my mentors, she actually advised, like you set an alarm clock every hour, just like to check, out of alignment, just go, close your eyes, reconnect, realign, carry on working. And when you're in that alignment, when you're in a flow, right, you can do days of work in like 1 hour. You push out that article like 1,000 words. It's like, well, shit, what I do with the rest of my day? And luckily, the people like us, we're going to find more things to do instead of just like allow ourselves to be, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So do you have any last questions for me before we wrap this up?
No, not really. I mean, it's fascinating. It's super, super, super helpful, to recognize myself as who I am, and also to find optimal ways of functioning and being and existing and decision making and, doing my work. And I look forward to, reaching into this in more depth with you, actually, because it is really phenomenal. So thank you.
It's a pleasure. You're welcome. And have a wonderful day. And I'm sure we'll speak again soon. It was
You
nice
too.
to have you. Thank you.
Definitely speak soon. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.